Uh, all right. Yeah, take two. That was very funny. All day, I've been thinking about doing a video here, and of course, the minute I start, my daughter called me. She needed something, so I had to jump off the first attempt at this. But we're gonna start again. Okay. All right. Welcome to Tech Time Today. My name is Jeff Welpley, and today I'm going to be talking about AI training data. This is something I'm not an expert in, and I won't claim to be. But the past few weeks, I have been learning, talking to people, doing research, and I thought it'd be interesting because I feel like there's a lot of different AI topics out there. A lot of people learning how to use AI models, especially different APIs, and sometimes building your own model. But the thing that I have not seen a lot about, besides the stuff I've been researching, is in this whole world of AI training data, and specifically a growing industry of buying and selling data between companies. So we're going to talk about a couple things there. It'll be a short episode, and in the future, I will give some like specific examples of some of the things I'm working on. But breaking this down and kind of doing the overview, what are we talking about when we say training data? So when you train models, you need some data that typically must have some labels or something where basically the answer is baked into the data, that you know the answer ahead of time, so the model makes a prediction, and then the you have the answer so it can compare to those answers, and then that's how it learns, right? So the trick is not just having the raw data, which could be, I mean, I guess there's a lot of different ways the raw data can come in, but most common is either text or voice, audio. I don't know exactly what format, but MP3, whatever, it's some form of wave file audio. And then, some labeling that whatever you're trying to train the model for, and it could be different things. And that's the other thing is, the raw data, it's there's many different ways in which you could use that. So a lot of the frontier models, they obviously have many different sources of getting your data. A lot of them train them on the internet, and they have different techniques of how to infer labeling. If they don't, if they, and most of them do have human labelers at some level as well. It's some part of their data pipeline, but some combination of automated and human labeling, and then they go through the training process. But the interesting thing, and the reason why I'm having this episode, is that there is this relatively new thing out there that some companies are starting to realize, like, hey, I have what may be valuable data to model companies, and maybe they're willing to buy my data from me. And so you see some of that out there, and I was curious about that. Like, what does it actually take? What are the requirements? Who are the buyers? Who are the sellers? That type of thing. So I started to look into it and talk to about that. And I guess the there's like kind of three interesting things that, well, maybe I'll add a fourth one here as well, but three main things that I was going to talk about that I thought were interesting. The first thing is that on the seller side, it seems like it's a pretty common thing among these growing number of people, like, oh, I have some voice data, like some audio from something that's part of our existing business, and maybe I can make some extra money selling this on the side. And that's kind of where we started or thought about things. But as you look into it, the raw data is often not good enough because it's a lot of work to label that raw data. And a lot of the companies that are buying training data, they're not looking for more work. Like yeah, I mean, there might be some cases where it is unique raw data. So like if it is certain type of audio that like you can't find other places, then maybe that has some value in itself. But really the value comes from it being prepared in the way that it can just be fed right into the model training process. um, so I guess that's like the first thing that I found that was interesting is that uh, any potential sellers, people that are out there, I talked to a couple other companies, the same exact things. One company that had been doing some mentoring sessions that they had recorded that both parties agreed to share the sessions. So like there's no like privacy legal stuff, which I'm going to talk about that in a second. So there's no issues there, and they definitely could do it, but they just had like the raw audio video with nothing added to it. And it's like, okay, well that's a start, but really to make that useful, you have to invest some pretty significant resources of your own to actually prepare that in a way that then it is sellable. So like I guess that's the first thing that was a interesting wake up call, I guess, of like the promise of some value to like the reality of where there is true value. And then the second thing is whether it matters who you're selling it to. That there are general purpose LLMs at Google and Anthropic and OpenAI, and they are looking for they have different requirements, different things than more niche, more specific model vendors. So someone like I actually I have no idea if like Zendesk, let's say, so I get humans in the customer service industry, and Zendesk is a customer service software provider, and I have no idea if they are training their own model. But if they were, that's an example where like they would be training it in a specific niche in dealing with customer service problems, and they would value then obviously data that is a fit for their niche. Then there's value there. But that trying to sell that data to obviously for sure someone in a different niche, but even to the general purpose may not be as valuable. So yeah, they not only specific purpose, but even like the more specific the alignment, like whatever somebody's trying to build to become the expert in. So like one person gave me an example that like if you had, instead of having 10,000 recordings of all sorts of various general purpose stuff, that's not necessarily as valuable as like 1,000 of consistently that a bunch of different users all trying to talk to Amazon about returning some sneakers, or so, like one specific problem that they're solving. Because then obviously when you have a diverse data set for one specific niche, that's how training is more successful. And especially when it's not just like a one-shot deal. Like if you can have a promise of doing it over and over and over again, that is hugely valuable. And like to that end, and I guess related to that point is it seems like in the market of AI training data, it's more about partnerships and relationships than like an open marketplace where you're just like, oh, I have all of this data that like I'll throw out there and there'll be multiple buyers and everybody will kind of jump on it. It's more something where, okay, you might as a seller of data, you might have a source, a way of getting data on that has potential to be valuable on a regular basis, and maybe you have some things set up to do the proper labeling using often requiring humans in the loop at some level to do that labeling in order to make it valuable. So you have all that set up, and then you create a relationship with a buyer who has like specific needs, and then you have to make like adjustments in order to be like a perfect fit so that you can kind of like do it. This is where you have the maximum value for that buyer, that you're basically prepping everything and they could just like take it and plug it in right to their training process. And then the last thing I was going to mention on this topic was just like, yeah, on the legal and compliance side, clearly that's always something that you would imagine intuitively that you need to be aware of when you are trying to sell data. But it's even more important in this case. There's a lot of concern for, and you see, even on for public domain stuff, that where AI models are training on public domain stuff, and then there ends up being issues or whatever. So like the more that you can have everything where everybody is given permission, that you've done everything in a very secure legal way, the better off things are. So yeah, I mean, what does the future hold in this area? Like, I don't know. It should be interesting because there's obviously, well, I should say obviously, but probably there's going to be a lot more need for this type of data. But it also seems like there's a lot more people that are starting to create companies focus on just providing this. So whether there's opportunities for just people doing it as like a side part of some other business they have going on, I'm not so sure. But anyways, so that was all I had for today. Just kind of an interesting topic, I at least to me, and it's something where I think that if I get another level down, I don't know how much more I'll pursue this, but if I find a really good article or something that gets down to like showing examples of data and that type of thing, I think that would be good to go over as well. So I might have another episode on this topic. But thank you for joining me today. Really appreciate you listening, and I'll see you again next time on Tech Time Today.